Good morning, everybody. Bright and early, 9 a.m. on a Friday. I appreciate you guys all coming out and um, taking the time to share this with me. Again, my name is Mark Tauscher. I'm with the Port of Vancouver. I just wanted to let you know I also have a puppy under my desk here. So I apologize if you hear some squeaking or something happens. My wife bought a puppy uh, without my knowledge, and he's now at work with me today. So, at any rate, feel free as we go through this to speak up or put something in the chat. I actually can't see the chat, but I'm assuming that there is one. Is that right, Brandon?
Yeah, I'll monitor the chat for me. Do you want me to interrupt you kind of mid-presentation with that, or save it to the end? We did.
Yeah, no, you can interrupt mid-presentation. I'm good with that.
Okay, cool.
Keep it as relevant as possible. So,
Yeah.
with that, I will go ahead and get started. Again, Mark Tauscher, Port of Vancouver. I am the senior environmental specialist here. I've been with the port for coming on 5 years. It's been a really wonderful time here. I came from the consulting side of the world. I used to work for AECOM, doing primarily stormwater as well as a lot of other NPDES related activities. Today, we want to talk about the Grattix Box. A really cool, I'm going to call it an invention, but it's really a development of stormwater technology to help treat stormwater. Some other people I want you to know about are Matt Graves and Mary Maddox. They are really the developers of the Grattix box. That they started working on this back in 2008, and so it's certainly not new technology, but just like other things that were developed around 2008, cell phones and whatnot, it's come a long ways over the years. We've learned a lot, and it's been changed to meet the site-specific needs. But yeah, Mary Maddox and Matt Graves were the ones. So today we're going to talk quick. I want to give you a quick overview about the Port of Vancouver. If you're not familiar with the Port of Vancouver, you don't live in the district, or you've never been to the Port of Vancouver, it's a pretty amazing place. I didn't know much about it before I started working here. So I'm going to share a little bit about that. Then we'll move into, what is a Grattix box? Some of you might know what a Grattix box is, certainly seen them or heard about them, but we're going to dig into that a little bit. I'm going to share some data, and then sort of the meat and potatoes of this presentation is how you can build one. What I really want to share is, in the event that you're interested in Grattix box, and developing one for your site, I want you to be able to feel comfortable putting one together. So as we're moving through, again, feel free to chime right in, and I'm happy to answer as many questions as I can. Okay, so the Port of Vancouver, we have a number of NPDES and stormwater permits here that we have to manage. And that was kind of the reason why the Grattix box um, needed to be developed. We have a municipal phase 2 permit that covers the entire footprint of the Port of Vancouver. We also have about 160 acres of paved industrial stormwater general permit coverage area. The Grattix box was used primarily to assist with the ISGP portions of the site, but because how nice they look and how cool they are in general, we've really moved them to other locations around the port. And then we also have construction stormwater general permits. Grattix boxes don't help so much for that, but this is just kind of gives you an idea of what we got. So a little bit about the port. So the port, it was really developed initially to acquire waterfront properties so that special interests couldn't monopolize it. We're one of 75 public port districts in the state of Washington. Washington is one of the most trade dependent states in the US. Like 40% of the state's job are tied to this international trade. We've got a lot of ports. Today, the port has grown along with the community that the port serves. We have nearly 4,000 people who come to work at the port every day. And in between truck drivers and tenant facilities. And so we are really involved in the economic development of the region. We're 105 miles inland, nautical miles from the Pacific Ocean. Vancouver is the furthest inland deep water port on the Columbia River. It's about an 8-hour trip from the Port of Vancouver to the Pacific Ocean, and the river channel is dredged to. We've got a 43-foot dredge deep to allow for the draft of these large ocean-going vessels. Not the entire riverbed is dredged. It's the channel is only about 600 feet wide, but the channel is maintained through a partnership with the ports between here and Astoria to ensure that these large vessels can reach inland. Only about 3.5% of the river is actually dredged because a lot of the river is actually deeper than 43 feet naturally. We dredge like 85 feet, but obviously that changes on a 10-year cycle from sedimentation and whatnots. And then once you get past the, down here, I don't know if you can see my cursor, but once you get past like the I-5 bridge, the river's only dredged to 14 feet, which because there's no need for deep draft vessels, but we want to make sure that it stays open so that things like barges can go as far as Lewiston, Idaho on the river. Here's a figure of the port in general. So we own, obviously this is Fruit Valley neighborhood up here, but we own the vast majority of the waterfront property from the I-5 bridge, which is right here, all the way down to the Flushing Channel. This is Vancouver Lake up here. So all of this property that's kind of outlined in this white line is Port of Vancouver property. So it's a big chunk of land, 1,600 acres total, along 4 miles of waterfront, and we have room to grow. We've got about 600 acres available for future development. That's this Columbia Gateway area and some of the green spaces that we have. That's going to hopefully be a long, long time from now. Because I love this green space. It's really wonderful out there. But the footprint starts from our Terminal 1. We've got a total of 5 marine terminals. Terminal 1, and then this kind of makes up this Terminal 2, Terminal 3, moving west out to the Terminal 5 location. So the Port of Vancouver, we've got a lot of multiple modes of transportation that makes the port attractive to our customers. Starting with the river, the importance of the Columbia River to trade. It connects us to countries all over the world via ocean-going vessel. Last year, 2024, I don't think we have the data for 2025 quite yet, but the 2024 data shows that we have about 360 vessels that came to the port either to load or unload, which is like, a ship a day. We also have a significant rail footprint here at the port. It's essential to the operations. We serve both the Union Pacific and the Burlington Northern Santa Fe lines. And the majority of the products that leave the port leave via rail, or I should say the majority of the products that leave or come into the port move via rail, about 65%. And then our location in Vancouver uh, puts us strategically for just road transportation. We're very close to I-5. So it connects us to Canada, as well as south to all the way to Mexico, and then obviously we're close to I-84 in Oregon, so that we can send stuff east. We get about 2,600 trucks that enter or leave the port um, on any given month. It's a lot of activity. So as I mentioned before, the Port of Vancouver, we're about 106 miles in from the Pacific Ocean. We've got 13 deep draft vessel berths total. Right now, if you drive over the I-5 bridge, you can see two military vessels that are currently moored here. And it's a really, really busy place with a lot of moving parts and a lot of activity, which makes stormwater a really difficult thing to manage here. We're very much a small city. Just give an idea, this has actually changed as of late, but we've got a lot of international trade partners. We're sending goods or receiving goods from all over the world. And then locally, we've got the most uninterrupted route from Asia via the Pacific Ocean to the United States mid-continent, right? So if you're trying to send something to Denver, the Port of Vancouver is a really good place to bring that in, because you can get so far up the Columbia River, and then you get a straight shot out to the middle of the continent. I've been told that the Port of Vancouver is the closest U.S. Midwest and as well as Western Canada location for destinations, right? So if you need to send something to Saskatchewan, that's large, like maybe a wind blade, the Port of Vancouver is a great place to do that. So we have a ton of marine operations. We deal with wood pulp from Brazil. We've got grains that are coming from Eastern Washington and Eastern Oregon. We also have some we got some petroleum products that come through the port, going to airports. We've got a lot of minerals. We're a break bulk facility. So unlike the Port of Portland that deals with a lot of containers, we do break bulk, which basically is goods and products that don't fit well in a container. So they have to be unloaded via a lot more manpower. And then they get set down on the terminal in a place that we call the first place of rest. And the challenge from a stormwater perspective is all of these different commodities get set out and it rains a lot. And then we have to, the rain touches the product. So some things we put inside, but we only have so much inside space. We used to handle copper here, copper ore that was coming from mines in Wyoming and Utah, and then that was going out. But we recently switched to soda ash, which is used for things like solar panels. And then if you have a Subaru, or if you bought a Subaru locally, anywhere west of the Rockies, it probably came through the Port of Vancouver, which is pretty cool. Like I said, lots of grain, getting it from all over the Western United States. We send a lot of grain out. And then wind energy is a big deal here. We handled more wind energy in 2024 than any other West Coast port. We've got enough power that comes through the Port of Vancouver to don't quote me on this stat, but 112,000 homes with the word wind turbines that cross the ports. Um, and recently we received the longest wind blade ever to enter the West Coast at 76 meters. That's like 250 feet. Um, and there's a rumor out there that we're planning to handle some 90-meter wind blades in the future. So stay tuned for that. We also have a recreational aspect. We're building a big path, a big trail between downtown Vancouver all the way out to the Flushing Channel. So this is just an opportunity to help people who are wanting to travel along Lower River Road do so safely. It's really, really great. It's about 5K from my office out to Frenchman's Bar and back. So that's kind of fun. They're going to be finishing up that trail this year. And then we're also doing a lot of redevelopment of the port area. The original footprint of the Port of Vancouver, which is located right by the I-5 bridge. There used to be a Red Lion hotel there. That got tore down a couple of years ago, and the Port of Vancouver is putting up a marketplace, which is going to be rad when it finally happens. So right now we've kind of got this landing here. There's some cool elements to just kind of hang out and be close to the river, as long as this transient dock here. But we're putting up this marketplace that's going to have kind of an anchor business, maybe a restaurant or a brewery, hopefully, and then it's going to have kind of pods for different businesses and commercial areas. So I'm really excited about this. In a few years, the Vancouver waterfront's going to be even better than it is now. I'm so excited. Okay, so now we also have a lot of industrial operations, and I know these pictures here don't really show, some of the industrial stuff that we do, but we've got a company that makes heaters, a Cadet Heating Company. It's like those in-wall heaters. We've got a cabinet maker. We've got beer malt that's coming through. A guy that makes practice pads for drums. We've got lead, battery like recycling operation. We've got metal recycling operation that you probably heard on the news caught on fire a couple of days ago. And then we also have a fruit packer. So we do a lot here, and we've got a lot of buildings and a lot of covered space, and the buildings are mostly, metal. And we believe here that you can have this industrial area as well as sustainability. Um, there's a lot of activity that's occurring that's really concentrated in sensitive areas between the Columbia River and Vancouver Lake, and we have wetlands, and we're kind of tucked in between the Fruit Valley neighborhood, and we understand the importance to operate sustainably. We understand that economics and the environmental health, as well as the human well-being, they're very interconnected, and a strong economy and a healthy environment are vital to maintaining a strong region. That's the port. Got any questions?
Mark, I don't see any questions in the chat yet. So if you want
Okay,
to keep going.
fantastic. Okay, and I'm about ready to get really, really excited. So bear with me. Somebody tell me to be quiet if I'm starting to yell. Okay, I think that this group is pretty familiar with stormwater. So I'm going to skip this slide. We know what stormwater is. We know this is why we care. We got fish to manage. We care about the frogs. We care about the people that are using the river to recreate, and it's our duty. It's our we have a mandate to protect the river, and it's my job specifically to ensure that the water that's going to the Columbia River is as clean as it can possibly be. Um, we here at the port have a number of contaminants due to the different operations that we have. That a number of contaminants that we need to worry about. Um, the ones we have to sample for are copper and zinc. Um, and so those are what those contaminants specifically are really what the Grattix box was designed for. Um, uh, quick backup: we have at the port we have 3 stormwater discharge points to the Columbia River, um, and so all the water that's running off the roofs, um, hits the concrete, hits the pavement, and then flows, depending on sort of the drainage basin that it's in, flows to one of 3 stormwater, like I'm going to call them a treatment facilities, um, and um, and anything that we can do to remove contaminants before they get to those facilities is just so important. We're constantly worried about it. Um, that's going backwards. Okay, so sources of zinc and copper here at this. I mean, I think that a lot of us know this, but here at the port, we found that our biggest sources of zinc come from things like roofs, from metal building roofs, corrugated metal roofs, as well as anything galvanized, right? So galvanized fencing, we've really veered away from that and started purchasing fencing that is like coated, um, and things like roof mounted HVAC systems. They tend to be galvanized for very obvious reasons, to help, uh, maintain their integrity. But that zinc comes, that galvanization comes with the zinc, and the zinc comes at a cost, as well as brake dust and things like that. And brake dust doesn't just end up on the ground. Windy conditions, it gets blown all over the place and ends up on places like roofs. So, what was developed to help with the contaminants that were coming off the roofs specifically was this Grattix box. It was a bioretention in a box, a stormwater innovation by port employees. It was a downspout treatment system, or is a downspout treatment system, created really to assist in the removal of zinc coming from our galvanized metal roofs. Our studies have shown that the boxes can reduce like 90 to 95% of the zinc in the roof runoff with minimal maintenance, to help us maintain our environmental requirements, with a really low upfront cost. So it started in 2008. We actually started in a 55-gallon drum, with really great results, but it had a really low infiltration rate. So we, well, and I use the term we as the Port of Vancouver, but it was Matt Graves and Mary Maddox who transitioned to a different box, this IBC tote, this plastic tote. I think they're 300 and there's 300 gallons basically, a little more than that, but you can actually get them in a couple different sizes. But that kind of came around in about 2010, and that provided more storage, um, a higher infiltration rate, and really a better product in general. Okay, so I'm gonna talk about how to build one. Um, the thing about these Grattix boxes is, you know, they there's a lot of people out there that are selling them and selling things that are very similar, but I want to try to do everything I can to make this seem as easy as it truly is, right? So as I'm talking here, we got to put on a little bit of Bob Vila from This Old House, a little bit of like Bobby Flay, from, the chef shows, right? There's a lot of options here that you can change how the Grattix box works to fit your specific needs. So, step one, get a tote. Get yourself a tote. They come in a couple different sizes: 275 gallon, 330 gallon. But we have found that the totes work really, really well. You take them, get them, cut the top off of them. Um, and it's a perfect vessel. You can also, uh, on areas that have like a really low roof drain, we've used things like, those Rubbermaid, um, like troughs that you can get at Coastal Farm and Ranch or Wilco, or, I wouldn't use the galvanized version, but the plastic ones, they really do work well, and they're pretty, and they're cool. Okay, so get yourself a tote. All right, the next step is to, uh, this is not required, but we found it works really well, is to add an under drain, right? So this is 2-inch PVC, drilled a bunch of holes in it. You could also use 2-inch, well screen. You can get it from like a well drilling supply store, or from your local environmental driller. Um, and but what we're looking for here is sort of this perforated under drain to increase the amount of water that's able to kind of exit the system. um, Not required, but really important step that we found works well. And then you see, the little outfall, the little out, valve of the IBC tote. This is looking down from the cutoff top. It's about 3 inches off the ground, and so we put like a little piece of 2x4 in there. It works really well. I wouldn't use pressure treated, but a little piece of 2x4 in there to kind of hold everything up works really, really well. Then we need to add some sort of drainage rock. I've seen this done in a couple of different ways. One of them is like, drain rock that you would buy, that's like a more of a river rock. It's a larger material. I think it works. It works okay. We like to use pea gravel. Um, I don't really, a combination of the two might be really good as well. Kind of larger rock on the bottom right around your drains, and then a slightly, um, smaller rock above that. But this has worked really, really well. So what you want to do is put, a couple of feet, 18 to 24 inches of gravel in there, and this is really your drain. I recommend, washing it. The drain rock is frequently not real clean. There's a lot of fines in it. And so we like to, just get the pile out there and, put it someplace that's not going to run down um, a catch basin, like maybe a grassy area on a tarp or something. And Or you can even do it in the Grattix box, as long as the Grattix box drain isn't draining into a catch basin, because remember, only rain down the drain. Um, but wash that rock and get as many of those fines that you can out of there. Then critical step is to put a little bit of, you need to put a barrier between the two. We have found that, putting, like the pet safe window screen, it's a tougher window screen. You can get it at Home Depot. You can buy it on Amazon. You can get it in a big old giant roll. Like a double layer of this window screen down. It also comes in like an uncoated version. I probably wouldn't use that either because I suspect that it might have some zinc in there. But Put some screen down. And what this is going to do is really protect your drain rock from the next layer of material. You could also use some sort of like jute matting that you might have laying around from other BMP maintenance projects. But the window screen seems to work very, very well. Once you put the window screen down, um, we want to put a layer of sand in. Again, washed sand. We want the cleanest sand that we can possibly get our hands on. Um, Even if it comes in a bag, you get it from Home Depot or whatever. Um, it tends to have quite a few fines in it, and uh, I recommend washing it and getting it clean. And again, you can do this in the box itself, um, uh, but again, the drain wherever that wash water is going needs to be managed. Um, you don't want to let that just go down a drain, down a storm drain, that is. Um, and the sand is an important step because it creates, or it really assists with the sort of uh, the mechanical filtration of your water. So um, if you're getting a lot of fines that are coming off the roofs, which happens, especially in kind of a first rain event, or if you live in an area or work in an area where there's a gravel road near, you do get a lot of, fine material that settles on the roof, just atmospheric deposition. And the sand really acts kind of like natural filtration to keep those fines from passing through the system. Okay, once you got the sand in there, you can put another layer of window screen if you like, but we generally just put a mixture of compost and sand on top of that. Now, this is an interesting layer because we've been testing the use of biochar added to this layer. Biochar has like a ion exchange property to it. It's really, really great at capturing and holding metals. And so we've been adding a little bit of biochar to this mix, and so far we've gotten longer uh, lifespans of the box in general and really, really good numbers. So the cool thing about this sort of BSM layer is it's very similar to what you would see in like an in-ground bioretention facility, right? That uses a compost and sand mix. So you can add other components to this to help meet the needs of your site. Some of the things I've heard other people using are things like perlite to help with just overall permeability of the material, and people seem to like that a lot. So this layer is the sort of Bobby Flay side. This is where you add your own little splash of seasoning that you want to put in here to help your site. One thing I want to make sure that I point out is not all compost is created equally. If you have compost that you're getting a lot of like plastics and yard debris, along with that comes some invasive species. So frequently invasive species. So just choose your compost appropriately. If it looks good, it's probably good. If it's got bits of plastic and stuff in there, it might not be a great source for you. You can usually get compost at like your local garden stores, but depending on how many Grattix boxes you want to make at a time, you might need a little bit more of like an industrial source for that. And then comes the super fun part, making it pretty. So once you have that compost sand mix, it's like a really perfect planting media. We like to use wetland plants, things like sedges and rushes. Um, you can buy them really cheaply, and they're really, really small, but they just shoot right up. Gosh, I've seen people also put, I mean, tomatoes in there. Um, I like the sedges and rushes because they come back every year. It's the perennials that we like, and they don't have super deep root systems. So, if you get something if you plant something in there that's gonna have a large root ball, you're gonna potentially affect the permeability of the box in general. So, uh, I recommend the sedges and rushes. They look so nice, but you can do whatever you want. And we got, some people say two. I kind of like to plant four or even six in there, because one always tends to die. And but space them out. The plants serve an important role of helping keep the media in place, with their root systems, as well as kind of uptaking some of the water, kind of just aspirating it away, which is good. Um, and then I also like to put in a couple of larger rocks in there, to help reduce the um, sort of the splash erosion that can occur. Um, so directly where you're placing this thing under a downspout, um, and so wherever the water is kind of splashing in there can create a little bit of a hole. And so we like to put some hardwood type mulch around the plants, like the chips that you'd see on like a playground. um, and I like the cedar, by the way. um, it smells really good. uh, and uh, but that stuff will get washed away. It tends to float. So if you got a spot where you can put some rocks in there, they look nice, and it'll help reduce the amount of erosion that's taking place. And then, in heavy rain events, these Grattix boxes, they just get inundated. Um, and so what we have found is that if we don't put any sort of overflow infrastructure, then we'll lose some of our bark chips. They'll just flow right over the top. So we like to drill some holes around the top, as level as you can, to sort of act as like a little spillway, a little overflow. And so if you do get that heavy rain event, that you're not losing all of your pretty. Oh, and also let me back up a little bit, to that step two. What I have seen people do, and this is really cool, is like on maybe one of these corners or even down over in one of the corners here, is to put, instead of straight pipe here, they'll put like a little PVC T in here with a pipe that just goes straight up, and then on the top of it put a little screen. And what that'll do is that kind of creates an overflow as well. And so that the water is still coming out the out instead of using the spillway. You could also just put it on the end, put instead of this cap, you can put a little 90, and then a 4-foot piece of PVC that sticks up with a little screen on the top. Again, everything's available at the Home Depot, and that creates a little overflow pipe, which is pretty cool and innovative. Okay.
Hey, Mark, there was a kind of a
Yes.
relevant
Yes.
question to where you're at, asking about if you guys have tested various plantings for effectiveness at removing various inorganic contaminants.
Yeah. Good question. Good question. So we have tested. Well, I should say we have tried lots of different plants with basically no change in treatment effectability, right? Effectiveness. They just the plants themselves don't do all that much that I have found. Now, that's not saying that, the next innovation isn't right around the corner, and we find that a particular plant is really, really great for removing um, a particular contaminant. Um, the reason why we chose is the rushes and the sedges is because we were just really trying to mimic wetland. So um, I guess the answer is we've tried stuff and the results have been sort of statistically insignificant.
Thanks, Mark. There's a
Okay.
couple other questions here, but I'm gonna let you keep going. I think these might come up, and if not, I'm gonna save them for the end.
Okay. 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 So then this is like the optional thing. This is like dressing it up, right? Like you here at the port, we thought that making them look like they were in a cargo box was cool, and so we did so. This picture, I should have taken a photograph of some of the ones that we've had out there for 15 years, but some of them look pretty sad at this point. But they are certainly look good, and if this with a little bit of you know environmentally safe wood protecting is pretty great. I've also seen folks wrap the Grattix boxes like the tote in like um a vinyl poster thing, kind of a vinyl wrap, with little eyelets, kind of like a tarp on the outside, like those vinyl, you know, things. And that way you could use like the logo or the branding of your particular business. I know that like Lower Columbia Estuary Partners, LSEP, we worked with them last year and made like 12 Grattix boxes, and they wrapped them in this LSAT wrap, and it looked so good. Phone numbers, and it was really cool. So anything that you can do to kind of wrap it is good, because that plastic does get a little bit of UV damage when left just exposed. So I recommend a little bit of protectant, some way to kind of block the sun. And the cool thing about the totes is they've got this sort of metal cage around them, so you got lots of tie spots, and there's lots of options for how to pretty that puppy up. Oh yeah, here's one. Yeah, okay, so we did throw it in. This one's a little bit more tired, right? It's been sort of out, but you got to position these guys under a downspout. Most downspouts, they go to the ground or close to. So we found you got to cut them off and do a little adjustment on how they drain, and it's all real minor stuff. But you can see these plants have just blown up. I should also point out that depending on where you place a Grattix, it does create a little bit of habitat. So if you wanted to put some like pollinator plants in there, that would be kind of a cool, um, you know, variation. Um, but what we see is birds. We see that the Canadian geese out here really like them for nesting, which seems to be fine. I mean, I don't know. It seems to be okay. That we've seen eggs that result in little goslings, and everybody seems to survive just fine. The geese kind of build a nest that's up. And so even though it gets sort of inundated with water, the geese seem to be fine. But um, uh, on the other hand, they sort of damage them. They really stomp down the plants, and so you got to replant after the geese show up, because turns out if geese make a nest, you need to leave them be. So it might not be a bad idea to shoo um, any geese that may habitate your Grattix box, shoo them away before they build a nest. You can see them looking at them too. They're thinking, oh, this is a good spot. This is a good spot. Okay, so this is sort of what it looks like when it's all put together, right? We've got the plants on the top looking pretty. We've got a little splash pad to help reduce the erosion energy of the water that's coming in. We've got some little bit of mulch in there. And then we've got the sand and compost mix, and then a drain system. So I think this presentation, Brandon, should be available afterward. So, and this is all available online as well. So feel free to grab this and build one. And then I think one of the other things, the Grattix box was again like 2010, 2008, sort of getting developed, and we've taken this to the greatest level and put in a big giant Grattix in the ground. This is just a BSM stormwater infiltration site on the port, and this was sort of designed by Kennedy Jenks, but we really wanted it to look and act just like a Grattix too. So this was put in after the Grattix box was developed. So far, we're meeting all of Ecology's ISGP benchmarks, so that's great news.
Hey Mark, there was a question I think back on your previous slide asking what
Mhm.
the holes at the top, the cross section were.
Yeah, these are the drain holes. They're too big, but in perfect world they wouldn't be that big actually. We've made them larger for a visual effect. But this is the drain hole. This is the overflow drain. They shouldn't be that big. If they were this big, all these little chips would just be flowing out of that puppy.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay, so we got that puppy. Okay, so then I got a little flyer. This is actually available on the Port of Vancouver website. If you ever wanted to hop on there and learn all about the Port of Vancouver, you can go to the water quality section, and get this flyer that is totally available. Print it out, share it with all of your friends and family, and that's just kind of what we've been kind of breaking that down today. Oh my gosh, I can't believe it's 9:51 already. Sorry.
You're
Okay,
good.
I'm gonna show a couple lessons learned really quick. Okay, so the totes themselves come with 2 or 3 inch outlets. Um, that the 2 inches are sufficient, and you can buy these adapters because the threads are different. So you can buy these adapters that adapt to the IBC totes in order to, like, if you wanted to plummet some way, right? Like if you don't want the water coming out right at the Grattix box, you can get these little adapters and then a little bit of PVC, and you can send the water elsewhere to drain in an area that's maybe more appropriate. It's quite hard to uh, to get the material into the tote. The totes sit about 4 feet high. They're like 40 inches, right? So getting the rocks and the compost and the sand and everything in there is pretty hard. And so we've got the ability to use a backhoe here at the port, but you can do it with a bucket. The catch is you've got to be careful when you're putting in the first few layers. You don't want to just like drop it in there and you'll break all your under drain stuff. Um, Make sure you're rinsing stuff, rinsing all the layers. You want to make sure that things are clean, 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 and have it run clear before you move on. If the outlet is running really slowly, that usually means fines are a problem. So you can try like a back flush. You could put like a garden hose in the outlet and add a little bit of pressure, and you kind of fluff the whole system. So that works good. I really recommend using the window screen as a separator. Um, you want to buy the cleanest sand you can find and then wash it. You want to be careful about the source of your compost. That's really important. Not all compost is created equally. It can contain some noxious weeds. Um, and I also have found that on the downspout side, if you add a little chunk of like lay flat hose, it's like a rubber hose, usually used for like discharges. You can get like a 4 inch or 2 inch or whatever size your downspout is, zip tied on there. That seems to reduce the energy of the downspout a lot. So I would keep that in mind. And then sediment can be a problem, and it will, so you have to go in there every so often and kind of scrape the top out and like replace the bark mulch. You also want to make sure that you're getting your totes from someone that, or whatever material, whatever like container you use. We want to make sure that we're using, we know what was in there before. It doesn't want to be like a chemical that is potentially hazardous. Now, I'm going to stop here. I've got a video. It's 1 minute. What do you think, Brandon? Should we take a question, or should I show the video?
Um, let's go ahead and do a couple questions, and then at the end maybe we can play the video. Is this your last slide?
No, I got a couple more, but this is
Okay.
ultimately the last. Go ahead.
So there, you touched on a little bit. Maybe this is a good point to ask it about your like O&M protocols, kind of any maintenance items you found over, what did you say, like 15 years
Yeah.
of having these out there?
Yeah, good question. Plants die during the summer here in Washington. They just get too dry. So I've started I water them as much as I can. Although I've also found that as many Grattix boxes as we have on the port, it's almost easier just to let the plants die and replant. I hate to say that, but in a perfect world, watering it would be the best choice, right? But it's so hard for me to get that much water on a truck and labor to get over and water them. It's actually cheaper to just replace the plants annually. But then when I replace the plants, I also like to replace the bark mulch, and then really look for any fines that have gathered on there, little pieces of trash and plastic and stuff. As far as the maintenance of like the BSM media, we just test it every so often to see what kind of breakthrough we're getting. It works really, really good at first, and then you start to get a little bit of reduction of treatment capacity over time. But the ones that we have that are 10 years old are still working. They're still reducing our chemical load.
Any issues with like clogging?
Little bit, a little bit. That's why the under drain helps so much. The initial design had a just like a piece of window screen over the outlet, and it just wasn't enough, right? So a little bit of issue with clogging, but again, if you wash the material really well before you put it in there, the less fines you have, the more likely it's going to be that your like infiltration rate remains high.
Okay. And then there was one more question. Is there any are you guys going to pursue getting this like tape certified?
No. No, we want to just send this out to the world, let other people use it and do it. And we use state dollars, like, because we're a port. And so anytime we go to work, we're spending state dollars. So we can't patent anything, right? So it's just out there in the world. We want to try to share as much as we can.
Yeah. And I do want to say we toured one of the tape testing facilities yesterday. And I know Stewardship Partners has a very similar technology. They're calling the Box of Rain. That I think they are getting tape certified. That I don't know what the difference is on the media mix. There might be a difference there, and somebody might be able to chime in the chat and say that. But they're testing that to treat, I think, runoff from like bridge downspouts. So just
Totally.
little info.
And Stormwater RX has one that they use. It's kind of their proprietary blend. Stormwater Biochar has one that's their deal. The idea behind this Grattix is like, you can do this yourself. You don't have to spend as much money as those companies. As much as I love those guys, they charge, right? You can do this. You can do this. Okay, I'm going to show this video. Cool?
Yep.
Okay, 1 minute.
Hi, I'm Mary, and I work at the Port of Vancouver on the environmental team. We're always thinking of ways to protect the water and the land around the port. So much so that one night I had a dream about it. I took my idea to my coworker, Matt, and he got to work. Soon enough, we had it. an invention that filters water from rooftops using plants and local materials. Basically, a rain garden in a box that keeps the water clean and the Columbia River happy. We call it the Grattix. And people seem to really like it. Because what's good for the river is good for the place we all call home. Hi, I'm
So cute, so cute, so cute. Okay, okay. In the last 1 minute that I have, okay. So old data, right? But I just want you to. I want to point out these numbers, right? As far as zinc, 97% reduction, copper, 92% reduction, you know, lead, 10% reduction. We don't sample for calcium and magnesium in our ISGP, but there, this is the result of the compost. We get an uptick in some things that come out of there. So you got to, when you're choosing your media, you got to make sure that you are keeping whatever things you need to, whatever chemicals of concern and contaminants of concern in mind. And then what's next, right? 6 ppd maybe, right? We're dealing with that. That's on the docket, right? Who knows? We're going to start messing around with what medias are available, because it's my understanding that 6 ppd is treated really well by wetlands. So we might be using this similar technology to deal with that. That's me. I'm right on time. 10 o'clock.
Awesome. Thank you, Mark. There was just one other question. I don't know if you have time for it or not. If you need to go, we can hop off.
No, I'm ready. What do you got?
So the question was, which layer captures the most zinc and copper in that?
Good question. We have cored some of the Grattix boxes to see that exactly. We'll take a sample at 6 inches, take a sample at 12 inches, take a sample at 18 inches, and so on. It's 100% the BSM media. The compost and sand mix is what tends to grab the metals and hold the metals.
Awesome. And then are you changing any of these layers out and replacing it, or is it the original media?
So yeah, depending on the load that it gets, right? So if it's really close to a contaminant source, there's a lot of atmospheric deposition of material onto the roof. We're changing out those medias. Generally, we don't have to change out the rocks, the drainage rock on the bottom. We just kind of rinse it and it's good to go. But we have changed out the BSM media and the sand layer in some of them. Others, we've only been changing out the very top layer, the mulch on the very top, the kind of bark chips, because they get kind of gooed up with material.
Awesome.
And I think you could also add things like oyster shell to it. And that might be an interesting, adaptation. But yes, we have had to change it out. They have a lifespan, but it's really dependent on the load.
Yeah, that makes sense. Awesome. Well, I think that's all the questions in the chat. Mark, thanks so much for being in here and doing this. It was super helpful, super informative.